Well, hello everybody. This is Brian Crawford, keeping Walt Disney, or the Disney Boomer. Hey Chris, thanks for joining in. Well, of course, we had a vote last week, and we decided to talk about 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea. And hi Jim. And this is just going to be a pretty informal discussion, and I'll kind of go over the film a little bit and some neat little tidbits. And if you can't stay along for the whole time, I think we'll only probably do this for 15 or 20 minutes. But I'll post the whole video to my Instagram account. And so feel free to come in and leave at your leisure. So hopefully you all had a chance to watch 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea. I'll admit I had just finished watching it this morning. I think I've seen it at least 10, 15 times, but it's always good to refresh myself. So, yeah, thanks for that poster. I wish it was a real silkscreen theatrical poster, but it's just a reprint. I also got some other goodies here. I got, of course, my 2-disc DVD, and I've recently got into collecting live action LPs. So here is one of the early Storyteller albums, and it's got a lot of neat stuff on the back. A few pictures of a few scenes from the film. There you go. And so let's have a little fun with 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea. So hopefully you watched it. If not, this little review will give you some inspiration to go ahead and capture or watch the film. And I got the soundtrack on CD, and so I'm kind of playing that in the background. Hopefully you can hear that. So what we'll do is I'll just kind of go through a quick synopsis, but feel free to comment or ask any questions you have. I'm not an expert Disney live action film person. My friend Chris, who's in the chat, he can also help me. Yeah, see, he's already chiming in with some tidbits here. So the album art, yeah, I've got the CD. Oh, where did I put it? Oh, here's the CD. Here's the CD album, and you'll see it's pretty similar to what's on the theatrical poster. A little brighter color, different than the album that was released. Different covers. So yeah, so Chris will chime in from time to time. He'll probably correct all my errors because he's good at that. You know, we're podcast buddies, and whenever I say something dumb, he hops on and says, "Yo, you're wrong." So 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea. It was released in December of 1954, and this is a fully Technicolor film filmed in CinemaScope. It was directed by Richard Fleischer, and that's an interesting name in Disney history because he is the son of Max Fleischer, who's considered to be one of Walt Disney's rivals in the animation business. Max Fleischer, popular for all those Popeye cartoons and Betty Boop, I believe. So I guess it's kind of ironic that Walt turned to Richard Fleischer to direct this film. Actually, he had hired a man named John Tucker Battle to write the screenplay, but Walt was unsatisfied with Battle's approach, and he actually hired Richard Fleischer, and Earl Felton is the one who wrote the screenplay for this version. And of course, the film is based on the novel by Jules Verne. It was had an impressive staff of art director and other art personnel. John Meehan was the art director, and another famous Disney name, Emile Curie, was also called on to do the set decoration. And the film soundtrack is an impressive specimen by none other than Paul J. Smith. We'll also talk a little bit about some of the matte artistry by Peter Ellenshaw, and Ub Iwerks also participated with a lot of the special effects, as well as Disneyland legend John Hench was involved. So you'll see a lot of miniature special effects throughout the film, and Ub Iwerks and John Hench are responsible for for that. And of course, the famous Harper Goff, our Jungle Cruise pal, is the one who designed the Nautilus from stern to keel. One song in this film, and it's called "A Whale of a Tale," written by Al Hoffman and Norman Gimbel, and it was performed by Ned Land, played by Kirk Douglas in the film. So let's talk a little bit about the cast. So Walt Disney, he pulled out all the stops for this one. It was really the first time that he decided to hire some really well-known names to the cast, and he made an ideal selection. And before I continue, I just wanted to let you know that I'm pulling some of my information from a couple of books here. So Walt Disney and his live-action films is one of the references, and the other reference book that I'm using today is this book by Leonard Maltin. This is the Disney films, the 4th edition by Leonard Maltin. So one of the experts in live-action films. So back to the cast. Yep. So Walt pulled out all the stops. And let's just quickly go through the top 4 players. Of course, I mentioned Kirk Douglas, who we know from popular films like The Gunfight at the OK Corral and Spartacus. He played Ned Land, and James Mason played Captain Nemo, and he is most known for a couple of films. Well, one, I have to mention this one. He starred alongside Judy Garland in A Star is Born, but also did another Jules Verne film called Journey to the Center of the Earth, in which he co-starred with another Disney personality, Diane Baker. So if you know what other Disney film Diane Baker starred in, go ahead and throw that in the chat. See if you can figure that out. I'll give you a hint. She co-starred in it with Dean Jones. So Paul Lucas, or Lucas, I'm not sure about that pronunciation. I love Mason in his Nemo role. Yeah, he's absolutely wonderful in this film. Thanks, Mark, for chiming in. And Chris says Lolita. Oh, is that another James Mason film? Yeah, I need to see more of his stuff. He's just a fantastic actor in this. Paul Lucas won an Academy Award for his role in Watch on the Rhine, which was a Broadway revival film he starred in. And, of course, we can't leave out the great Peter Lorre, who I think we all know from Casablanca. He was in that film with alongside Humphrey Bogart, Ingrid Bergman, and he was also in another Jules Verne-inspired film, Around the World in 80 Days, which also had a couple of other Disney actors. David Niven was in that, as well as Robert Newton. So that's the cast. Like I said, Disney, he really pulled out all the stops. He did not... It was really his most ambitious live-action film to date, and remains one of the most successful he ever made. It brought in about $28 million in the box office. And Mark said The Horse in the Gray Flannel Suit. Yes, that's it. That's the other film Diane Baker starred in, along with Dean Jones. So Mark gets some bonus points. Maltese Falcon. Who was in that one? I think that was James Mason as well. I'm not an expert film person. I know a lot about the Disney stuff, but Chris, my pal, he's all about the old movies. So Walt Disney pulled out all the stops, and he said that Jules Verne's futuristic tale of a kind of a crazy sea captain and his submarine would create a great story worthy of a major production. And again, it's kind of evident with the folks that, or the art people that he hired, and their lavish decorations. Oh, Peter Lorre was in Maltese Falcon. Yeah, that's right. So especially you can see, like in one of the first scenes where the Professor Aronnax and Conseil walk into Nemo's quarters, and you see those great Rococo decorations with the velvet chairs and the the divan couches and the pipe organ. A lot of those visuals were really responsible for the success of this film. So it's very pleasing to the eye. So a little bit about the Nautilus. That was built to scale. It was over 200 feet long, and it was shaped, as Verne had described in his novel, as an undersea monster with the headlights, those famous green neon kind of glowing headlights, acted as the eyes in the dark water. So the film was also very successful, in part due to a documentary film that Walt directed back in before the film came out in early December 1954, a film called Operation Undersea. Yeah, the OG steampunk. Yeah, steampunk. The Nautilus is definitely an example of that. So how many people have seen Operation Undersea? That was a Disneyland anthology series program that aired just before the film debuted, just a couple of weeks. Was written by Winston Hibler and Ted Sears, and it really basically shows a history of man's desire to navigate underwater. So it kind of shows the development of the scuba gear in a playful format and some neat animation. But I think the real gem of this is how it goes into real detail on how Disney filmed all of the underwater scenes. And those are some of my favorite scenes. Yes, and it was an Emmy Award-winning episode, Operation Undersea. You can get it on Amazon Prime. I purchased it there. I think it was about $10. So you can add that to your collection. So all the underwater scenes were filmed on location in the Bahamas. And they used an interesting camera called the Mitchell camera, which was a fully encased waterproof camera. And they also used something called an Aquaflex camera that divers could swim through the water with this Aquaflex camera and get all of those wonderful shots of all the fish, of the funeral scene, of the scene where Nemo sends his workers down to collect food and harvest the crops. All that was filmed on location in the Bahamas. And it talks about this gentleman named Fred Bendar, who was a expert diver, and he's credited in the film for teaching all of the cast and the actors, the crew, to survive underwater. And it was really interesting. They budgeted 2 hours of film time for each one of those, by providing all of the folks who worked underwater with 2 hours of air. But for safety reasons, they limited those underwater filming scenes to 55 minutes. So it was a lot of going up and down and up and down all day, very tiring. So Mr. Fred was there to make sure everybody was in top shape condition. Because those suits that the actors wore underwater were 250 pounds each. So Chris asked if that Operation Undersea is on the 2-disc DVD set. I think part of it is. I think the part that shows up in there, there's a making of the 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea featurette, which has some footage from Operation Undersea, but the whole episode is not on this 2-disc set, unfortunately. Otherwise, I wouldn't have bought it. So let's kind of go through the plot a little bit. So the film opens, with a really interesting opening with a curtain rising and that wonderful Paul Smith soundtrack. And basically what's going on in this film is there's a lot of reports of this sea monster attacking ships in the Pacific Ocean in the mid-19th century, right around the year 1868. And the characters, Professor Aronnax, played by Paul Luca, and Conseil, played by Peter Lorre, are trying to gain passage aboard a ship and try to sail to Saigon. Well, they can't gain passage because all the ships and the crew are afraid to sail in the waters because of all these attacks. And so what happens is the U.S. government has use of Professor Aronnax to kind of study or investigate like what's going on with this monster, and so they book him passage on a ship called the Abraham Lincoln, and Ned Land is the harpooner, also is amongst the crew here, and just as you would have it, they're attacked by the Nautilus, and, and Land, Aronnax, and Conseil withstand the crash and are rescued by the monster. So the commander, Captain Nemo, who's kind of like the way Leonard Maltin describes him is as a misfit genius who has harnessed some of the world's greatest discoveries, but is bound to use them to destroy mankind. And this is kind of based on his past. So apparently he had was part of this whole operation that was set on war and wreaking havoc, and Nemo didn't align with those ideals, and so he abandoned his post and created this like sort of atomic submarine, and he made it his mission to he made it his mission to rid the world of these people who mined nitrates and phosphates for mass weapons of destruction. In turn, creating his own mass weapon of destruction in the form of the Nautilus. But after Aronnax and Land and Conseil are aboard the ship, Aronnax kind of makes it his mission to discover Nemo's secrets, and Nemo is kind of reluctant to share the secrets at first, but eventually he does kind of show him the ins and outs of the Nautilus and how it's powered, and Aronnax is really excited to share these secrets with the world, but Captain Nemo is not, because he wants to keep this to himself, because he finds solace, he finds peace in this underwater world that the Nautilus allows him to enjoy. And so one of the first nights where they're all kind of hanging out, they enjoy a meal. And let me go back and answer some of these questions before we get into that first meal. And here, let's see. Brian asks, can it be possible all those movies by Walt Disney will be brought out in stores? Yeah, I mean, this film is definitely available for purchase on disc. I don't know if there's a Blu-ray release, but a lot of films are widely available. It's definitely on Disney Plus. So, Disney. Chris said Disney had to invent the suits. Yeah, that's definitely true. They totally created those based on Jules Verne's description in the novel. So, anyways, back to Brian. Yeah, you can pick this up in a store. A lot of their DVDs are available that way. Chris also said it found it interesting how the SS Abraham Lincoln was a traditional style sailing ship that also had smokestacks. Yeah. The Abraham Lincoln reminded me of the ship in Search of the Castaways, because that was also a steam-powered ship. But the Abraham Lincoln did have a mast, so it could definitely raise sails and sail around. But it became one of the unfortunate casualties of the Nautilus, as we find out later. So back to Professor Aronnax. His whole job aboard the Nautilus is to discover Captain Nemo's secrets, but Ned Land and Conseil, all they can think of is looking for ways to escape. And so what happens is Ned kind of he sends out all these messages in bottles, which kind of point to where the Nautilus is headed, to this mysterious island, in quotes, called Volcania. I use mysterious island in quotes because that's the name of the land in Tokyo Disney Sea that's modeled after Volcania. So Ned Land's job was basically try to escape and pinpoint his, I guess, colleagues or former sailors out in the world to ambush the the Nautilus as it approaches its home port of Vulcania. I wanted to talk about that first meal. So did anybody enjoy that scene when they're all kind of gathered in Captain Nemo's quarters? It's pretty cool. So he offers them food like a saute of unborn octopus, which is like the pudding they eat. Fillet of sea snake, which Aronnax says tastes like veal. He's also munching on some sea cucumber preserves, and afterwards they all get together and smoke some seaweed cigars, which is fun. Ned Land and Conseil aren't too. They kind of lose their appetite as Nemo describes what the food is made out of. I think that's a fun scene. I really enjoy that one. So that's one of the things that Nemo loves about this underwater world, is that the sea supplies all of his wants. And we see that fascinating scene. One of my favorite scenes is when they're down gathering food and doing a little bit of research. He takes Ned Land and Conseil and Aronnax down there. And while Aronnax is busy studying everything, Ned Land and that food scene made it to the trailer, right? So Ned Land and Conseil they find the ship, and all they're concerned about is getting the treasure out of there. Yeah, that is a funny scene. The one where they're eating. I love how Ned Land eats all his food with a knife. Like he just like sits right down, grabs his knife, scoops all the food up, and just eats it right off the blade. Yeah, that's something that my mom told me not to do at the table. So. Right away, you kind of see Ned Land's mannerisms. He does not cooperate with Captain Nemo at all. So, but it's also fun. Ned and Conseil offer a lot of comic relief, as does the seal Esmeralda, Nemo's pet. There's some fun scenes where Ned Land is singing with the seal. So back to the plot here. The Nautilus is heading for Vulcania, which is the island headquarters for Nemo and his men. And then as they're traveling there, there's that great scene of the squid. I think that's like probably one of the most popular scenes of the film. That was actually shot a couple of times. The first time, Walt didn't like the way it turned out because the way it was shot in a soundstage on the Walt Disney Studio, you could see a lot of the riggings for the squid and the ropes and wires that held the squid up. And so what they ended up doing was creating a different scene, and a more thrilling and entertaining scene, in my opinion, and I think widely accepted as a highlight of the film. And they set it in a storm, which kind of hides some of that necessary rigging and things just to physically do the scene. So that was all done during this incredible storm. And during that, we see Ned, who was in prison, basically, for trying to escape and going against Nemo's wishes. So before they had arrived to the squid scene, there was a scene where they were on a beach. Ned Land and Conseil go onto the beach, and Ned's trying to escape, so he actually goes into the jungle against Nemo's wishes. Well, on the way back, he's chased by a horde of cannibals, and that's an interesting scene because that was all filmed in this area called in Jamaica at Long Bay. And in Operation Undersea, you learn that all of these cannibals, quotes, were actually native Jamaicans, citizens, and they invited all of their families and friends to come out for the filming that day, and they had this great picnic on the beach and dancing and a lot of good times. But Ned Land escapes, back in the skiff with the Conseil, and they row back to the Nautilus, and Nemo proceeds to put him in quarters, in jail, so to speak. But he does escape and ends up rescuing the squid beak, the stuff of nightmares. Yeah. So and Ned battles the squid harpoons him right in that squid beak, or right between the eyes, and kills the squid and saves Ned Land's life. And this is kind of like a pivotal part in the scene, because the whole reason why Nemo is down, built the Nautilus, roams the sea, destroys other ships who are set on destroying mankind. It's because he's lost his faith in humanity, and Ned Land kind of resurrects that faith by saving his life, because they don't get along at all. He asked Ned Land, like, "Why did you save my life?" And Ned's like, "That's a good question. All I can say to that is I need to get drunk and think about it." So he does just that. But so this experience, along with some consistent prodding by Professor Aronnax, Nemo does decide to make peace with the world and share all of his secrets with that he's learned, like atomic energy, electricity, and other wonders that are aboard the Nautilus. But just as they arrive to Vulcania, the ambush is there. All of those bottles that Ned tossed out earlier, they actually made their way to other folks out in the ocean somewhere, and they all surrounded the island of Vulcania. Were all ready for Nemo when he arrived in the Nautilus. Well, he goes underwater through this cool little secret tunnel and gets inside Vulcania and plants a bomb, and they escape. And while he's trying to escape, he's shot, unfortunately. And as he's dying back aboard the Nautilus, he decides to blow everything up. Orders the first mate of the Nautilus to sink the submarine, and so it's basically a suicide mission. Well, Ned, Aronnax, and Conseil do manage to escape in the skiff, and they see the entire of Vulcania explode, and that's it. And it kind of ends with Captain Nemo saying that, kind of whispering to the effect, saying, "When the world is ready for all of my discoveries, it will come to pass in God's good time." So, this is such a great film. I mean, I really enjoyed watching it. I think one of the coolest things is just the fact that it's in Cinescope, and if you watch it on Disney Plus, it's fully remastered in high definition, and it's just a wonder to behold. So that's kind of all I have in terms of the story. So if you guys have any questions, feel free to ask those in the comments. I'm gonna kind of go through some neat fun facts that I discovered while watching this and doing a little bit of research for the film. So the first one, as we listen to Captain Nemo play the organ here in the background, Chris says, "Why am I reminded of the scene at the end of Bedknobs and Broomsticks when Mrs. Price lab blows up?" Yeah, that explosion's on a smaller scale to Vulcania, but yeah. Oh, I did want to make one correction. The diving master, Fred Zendar, I got his name wrong. I don't know what I said before, but Fred Zendar was the guy. So the organ that Captain Nemo plays, and there's a neat story about how Emile Curie discovered this. Have I ever fantasy casted a remake cast? Oh, I never have. Like, who would be a cool cast instead of the one that we know now? No, I've never done that before. I'd like to hear your ideas, though. Go ahead, Mark. Put that in the comments. If they wanted to, I think there was a remake of this film. But yeah, if you want to use some modern day actors, who would be a good idea for Captain Nemo or Ned Land? Yeah. Let me think about that. So Curie found this old pipe organ in a newspaper ad. And so this guy had an old theater organ that he wanted to get rid of, and it didn't play, it didn't work. So Curie telephoned him, and he went to see it. He walked into his house, and the owner took Curie into his garage, and there was this organ. It couldn't play at all. It was just no good, but everything was there, all the stops, all the keys. But Curie didn't tell him what the organ was going to be used for. And so he asked the gentleman, how much do you want for this? And the guy was like, I'll take $50. So Curie wrote out a check for $50 and got a receipt. And then Curie said, I'll send a truck for it to have it picked up. And it was at that point that the gentleman found out it was from the Disney studio. But, one other interesting thing is James Mason did not know how to play the organ or the piano at all. And it just kind of speaks to his acting prowess, how he was taught to finger the toccata and fugue of Bach. So when you're watching that scene, that's actually James Mason playing the actual piece by Bach on an organ. So just amazing what that gentleman could do besides being a gifted actor. He kind of learned that in a matter of weeks, I'd say. Yeah, so Chris says the 20,000 Leagues exhibit where the organ was first. That's an old exhibit in Disneyland. The organ was on exhibit there in Tomorrowland, but it still does live on. And does anybody know where you can find the organ today? Go ahead and put that in the comments. It's still in the park. Yeah, Brian really loves this movie. Yeah, so do I. So great film. Another fun thing about Ned Land. So one Haunted Mansion, MD Snotty 51. You're right. Yeah, it's totally in the Haunted Mansion today. So if you notice, like, this film's interesting because the four main actors are all men. And Ned Land, or Kirk Douglas, had something to say about that. And there's a funny scene at the beginning of the movie. Well, what he said was Uncle Walt was very easy to work with. And if you had a suggestion, and if it was a good one, then Walt would usually go with it. So Kirk goes on to say, well, I played Ned Land, kind of a lusty sailor, quite a ladies' man, but the picture was all aboard a ship. And he said, there are no women in this picture. Why don't we start off with my character and two gals in a barroom scene leaving on their way to the ship? And Walt said, sure, let's do it. So at the very beginning of the film, where they're at port in San Francisco, you see Ned Land with a couple of saloon gals on his shoulder. It's a funny scene. He kind of raises a ruckus. What am I saying here? And he gets knocked out, falls into the mud. He gets right back up, and he puts his arms back around the girls, and they go off, but not before he gets grabbed again. But I just found it funny that those two women at the beginning allowed him to put his arms around him when he was like totally muddy. So Brian says, yeah, definitely what I heard, the piano, the organ is in the Haunted Mansion. I think of Davy Jones using it in the Pirates of the Caribbean, Dead Man's Chest. Yeah. Was a couch in 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea in the Haunted Mansion, right? I don't know. That's a good question. Is there a couch from the film set in Haunted Mansion? I mean, there are several items of furniture in that ballroom scene. I wonder if one of them is one of those red velvet divans in Nemo's quarters. It may. I'm not sure. Another fun fact, I mentioned Harper Goff, who designed the Nautilus submarine. He took that directly from Jules Verne's description in the book, and Goff decided on his design would be a cross between a shark and an alligator. And so he chose those animals because the shark and alligator were quite deadly looking in the water, so he based his design on the physical characteristics of those animals. The submarine's streamlined body, dorsal fin, and prominent tail simulated the traits of the shark, and the heavy rivet patterns on the surface plates represented the rough skin on the alligator, while the forward viewports and the top searchlights represented its menacing eyes. So Brian says, I can't ever stop laughing when I watch this, no matter how many times I watched it. Oh, is that when Ned Land gets knocked out into the mud? Yeah. Possibly. I missed that comment. So another kind of interesting fact is the fish in the film. That was kind of one of the jobs that the crew underwater had to do, was to gather extras. And so what they tried to do was capture a lot of fish and then release them when they started filming, so that it kind of to give those underwater scenes a sense of realism. And there is a scene where they're aboard the Nautilus and you look out and some of those fish are actually animated. So 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea definitely has a little bit of animated fish in this film. So, all right, I kind of gone through all my notes here. Looks like folks are talking about the Haunted Mansion ballroom. Only had chairs and a table, then an old woman in the rocking chair. I don't remember a couch. Yeah, I don't remember if there was a couch either. I definitely need to re-ride that. Okay, and Mark's chiming in with his fantasy cast. So yeah, what do you guys think? If 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea was remade, and God forbid that it is, by Disney, yeah, I sure hope they don't, because this is just a perfect film in every respect the way it is now. But if they did decide to do it, Jeremy Irons could be recast for Nemo. Who do you think would be a good Ned Land? I'm not sure. I'm not sure who could do a better Ned Land than Kirk Douglas and his rump shaking when he sings "Whale of a Tale." I just love that scene. And that whole crew singing along with them. That's a great song. So, and that guy that sings the bass, boy, loved him tenderly. Fun song. So who would play the professor? Oh, Harrison Ford. Harrison Ford could be Nemo? Maybe he could be the professor. I don't know. But let's see. I think that's about all I got here. Kind of said everything I wanted to say. Let me just kind of glance through my notes here. As I read through Harrison Ford would be a good Ned Land. Yeah, I think like back in the day, when he was the age when he was playing Indiana Jones. Yeah, definitely. And Sean Connery could be Professor Aronnax. Who could do Peter Lorre's job as Conseil? Yeah, Mark Rainbow agrees with Harrison Ford. Or maybe he's agreeing with Brian, where he says, I don't want any of these films forgotten. We need them for new generations to learn about Walt Disney and his work. Exactly. Yes, that is kind of why I decided to do this. I know this one's kind of been a little rough. It's the first time I've done anything like this. But all I really want to do is kind of bring these films back to life, bring them back into the limelight with us. Oh, Connery's passed away. You're right. Well, yeah, it's a fantasy cast. But yeah, if that's kind of one of the purposes of my account here, is to keep these films alive and help folks gain an interest and appreciation for them. So I'm really happy I was able to share 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea with you guys today, and I'm grateful for all the comments and questions that you guys had. And I think what I'll do in a couple weeks from now, we'll go ahead and look at Treasure Island because I have a cool lobby card set I'd like to share with you guys. I don't have a lobby card set for 20,000 Leagues Into the Sea. That's kind of one of the things I collect, and so, but I do for Treasure Island and several other films. So with that, we'll be back in a couple of weeks. We'll do Treasure Island next, and we'll talk about Robert Newton, Bobby Driscoll, and why Walt Disney had to shoot that film over in England. And Chris says after we can do a vote. Sure. After we do Treasure Island, we'll go ahead and do another vote. And feel free to comment on this video with some films that you guys would like me to watch, and then we can do another vote. Like I said, Treasure Island's next. Maybe we can do Swiss Family Robinson. That would be a good one. Another vote for Jim. Okay. Yeah. So maybe we'll vote between Swiss Family Robinson and Kidnapped. I don't know. Yeah. All those films are great. Treasure Island, Old Yeller, Swamp Fox, Davy Crockett. Yeah. Yeah. We'll kind of go through all of them. Haley Mills movies. Definitely. We can do one of those for sure. I love Haley Mills. Who doesn't? So anyways, thanks again, everybody, for chiming in and listen to me ramble about 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea. If you haven't seen it, go check it out. It's on Disney+. It's an outstanding film with an outstanding cast. Filmed in CinemaScope. It's just a beautiful picture to watch. An absolute treasure amongst the Disney film library. So y'all have a great day, and we'll talk to you later. Bye.